Hey there, Fletcher from All Things Overlanding here, and today I'm going to be talking about the all-new Z1 Recon bumper. This is a covert style bumper, basically takes the place of your center fascia on your 2022 or newer Frontier. I'm going to be walking you through not the entire install because they've got a really fantastic document that they made that I use as my primary resource that I will link to down below that's extremely helpful. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through any of the challenges, any of the tough spots that I got into. I had a winch in mind when I installed it, which made it tough. I'm going to tell you kind of some tips and tricks for how I installed it because it does weigh about 110 pounds. I'm going to talk about how much weight you actually add by the time you remove the pieces that come off the truck versus this bumper. So there's going to be a lot of good info in this video if you're considering the bumper or if you are actually in the process of installing it. So I'll put chapters down below if you want to check those out to kind of jump around and find the info that you need. But let's get into how to install the Z1 Recon bumper on your 2022 Plus Frontier.
Where it came from, but you got it, my got it. It began in the land of the sandstorm. I fought it, though I wanted everything to do with what you give to me. Loosening my grip.
All right, guys, so first of all, I wanted to kind of start by talking about these active louvers that were in the front of my truck. I have watched a bunch of covert bumper install videos, and I don't know if they just had 2022s or maybe this was something that came on the 23s, or maybe if their trucks just didn't happen to have these. But in none of those videos could I find any information about these active louver things. And they're kind of a pain in the butt. Like, honestly, they take up a ton of space behind the bumper. So this thing basically sits in this whole area right here. So that those louvers basically sit right here on like this bar, and then they take up this entire space behind the grill. It makes taking the grill out really tricky, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. It also has a harness that connects to it, but if you have these things, you do have to unplug the harness and remove these active louvers as well as the grill, and unplugging the harness that plugs into your front camera if you've got one on your truck. So now over here at the truck, this is the harness for the front camera. So again, when we get done, we're going to reinstall that. Z1 does also provide a relocation kit for your front-facing like adaptive cruise control system. This thing was kind of down here in the bumper, and they actually give you these little brackets here that just sort of bolt in to, there are a couple of stock locations, stock holes here in this part where you can just basically attach this bracket, and then you attach this one to it, and then you do retain your stock nuts here, so don't throw those out when you're disassembling this thing. Make sure you keep those little nuts so that you can reuse them to reattach this thing, and then you basically just attach your harness, and it's actually nice and tight. It doesn't have a lot of play to it. I'm going to push it down under there because again, those active louvers are going to sit right there. And then this is going to plug into the active louvers when I put those back on. Then I went with the Novesight 20-inch light bar. Novesight makes some really good stuff. I've run a number of their lights, so I've been really happy with it. And it basically mounts in there. They've got these sort of adjustable rails. And then I basically just put the bolts through the end and then just tighten it down as tight as I could. And that was pretty much it. I didn't even really have to use much of the mounting hardware that came with the Novesight lights because of the flexibility of the brackets that came with the bumper. As far as tips for how to get this bad boy up here, because this thing weighs 110 pounds. So I would definitely recommend having a second person to help you. I had a buddy come over and help me, and that made it significantly easier. But basically what we did was we put a floor jack underneath of the center of it, and we kind of balanced it on it, one of us on each side, holding each side of it. And then I was holding onto the bumper with my right hand and, working the jack with my left hand. And we just slowly raised it up. And then we could use the jack too to roll it back and forth. So we kind of got it leveled with where we wanted it on the front of the truck. Then we just slowly sort of jacked it up. You want to do it on a flat surface, otherwise it's going to pull away from you. It's going to kind of try and slide into the truck. So make sure you're doing it on a flat surface. But then, we just jacked it up till we got it about to the level. And then basically at that point we switched places. My buddy, got into the middle and straddled the jack and then held onto the bumper to sort of support it and wiggle it. And then as he wiggled it, then I slid these bolts in. So basically once you get one bolt in, that helps. Then you get another bolt in on the other side, and then you can drop in your second bolts. But then once you've got your bolts in, right, then all you're doing is you're hooking everything up. You're running your cables for your winch line up there. I ran my cable for my 20-inch light bar down through here and through some loom. And then I'm actually hardwiring it into, these are my fog lights. I actually have replaced my fog lights. So what I've done is I spliced in to the fog lights directly for the 20-inch light bar, and then I've got Deutsch connectors for my actual fog lights. I'm going back to the stock ones just for now until I can find replacements. because the ones that I had before I didn't really like. So for right now, I've spliced my stock OEM fog lights into a Deutsch connector just to make them super easy and plug and play. And then there'll be a stock fog light on each side. But again, I just wired my 20-inch light bar straight into the same loom for the lights that I'm going to be using for my fogs. So when I turn on my fogs, both the fogs and the 20-inch light bar will come on. I'll only use that, you know, when I'm off-road or when it's nighttime and I'm going to a camp spot, that kind of thing. Now, another thing with this bumper that you may notice is these 4 bolt holes over here on the side. What these are actually for is they do have some optional wings that are going to come with it. So you can either go with the covert style, which is, you know, just going to replace your center section of the truck bumper, or you can go with the wing style where you do have to cut. So I will have to cut part of my bumper out here and part of my fender just to make it fit, but it does become then a pretty sturdy, pretty strong, higher clearance front bumper. So it's basically going to have these wings that come out to the sides. And so as soon as I get those, I will be installing those too. But if you're not doing the wings, then it's really super easy. All you have to do is basically trim the center section of your plastic bumper so that it doesn't have the clips and the tabs. Again, that'll be in the instructions that I linked down below. But you just have to basically trim out those old tabs that held the plastic centerpiece so that it fits smoothly around this bumper. But this thing is literally molded to fit perfectly in your the spot where your center section of your bumper goes. So this is the stack of stuff that I removed that's basically being replaced by the bumper. So there's this plastic part which I kind of cut up a little bit just to get it out because I actually didn't take this off until after. So I'm going to show you that here in a second where that was. So, but there's these 3 pieces are of that. Then I did take off the metal sort of tray thing. I mean, this thing is made of basically aluminum foil, does nothing. So I just pulled that off to make oil changes and stuff easier. I plan on putting full armor under the truck anyways. Then there's the foam sort of thing that goes behind the bumper. Then there's this actual crash bar, the metal piece. And then of course there's all the plastic there. That adds up to about 38.6 pounds. So while you're putting on a 110-pound bumper, the net difference is actually only about 70 pounds. So you're only really adding 70 pounds to the front of the truck. Now, of course, when you add a winch, that's going to add another, 30 or 40 pounds. So basically with the winch and stuff in there, the way that I figure it is, I'm at about 110 pounds fully loaded with the light bar and the winch. But just so you know, 38.6 pounds is what this stuff weighed. So if you're curious about the net difference, it's about a 70-pound difference to go to the Z1 bumper versus the stock stuff that you're going to remove from the truck. Another tip is underneath of these sort of metal braces, this one here, again, that you attach your front-facing cruise to when you relocate it, there is a plastic piece, and I'll show you that here because I've removed it. I actually had to cut it out because I didn't take that off before I started to mount the bumper. So big tip there is this plastic piece. There are 3 10-mil bolts. They're basically right there, right back behind this harness, and then right back behind this harness. If you pop those 3 10-mils out and pop that plastic piece out, there is one little harness that attaches to the bottom of it. It basically attaches, this is the underside to this tab right here. But what I did with that was I actually put it up here underneath of this brace, and then I pushed the little pin that was holding it to that bracket on the old plastic piece up through here, and then I ran a zip tie through it around this loom just to sort of hold it right there out of the way. So that's how I relocated that. It's just some sort of a weird empty harness. I'm not 100% sure what it does, but it doesn't go to anything. It just goes into this and then it stops there. So if you know what that is, post up in the comments down below. Again, I'm not sure what it was, but I didn't want to lose it. I just moved it a little bit so that it's out of the way of my winch down here so that I can reach the clutch. All right, so one really quick update here. Originally, when I looked at the instructions on Z1's manual, I didn't read them closely enough. So tip number 1, make sure you read the manual as closely as possible. So I actually installed my bumper using the top and the 3rd hole, which is what's pictured in their instructions. But if you read their notes, it says, hey, this is, we're using these holes because our Frontier has a 2-inch body lift. So if you have a body lift, you want to use the top and the 3rd holes. These are 24mm heads. They're M16 by 2 bolts and nuts. So 24 fits on them, but now I'm taking this off because I'm wrong. When I started to install it, it's too high, way too high, like 2 inches too high on the bumper cover. So again, if you are on a stock non-body lifted Frontier, you want to use the 2nd and 4th hole. But again, what that means is actually the reinstall of this is going to be even easier because now I'm above this gusseting. I don't have to mess with getting in here, which is really tight. And then I'll be down low on the bumper too. So it'll be a little bit easier to install. So anyways, working on that right now. All right, guys, so we are done. The bumper is on. As I mentioned in the video, though, there's a very important sort of lesson to be learned from all this, which is, especially with something like a bumper install, something that requires cutting of your OEM sort of bumper cover and things like that, really, really, really be careful and read the instructions super carefully. I'm a typical, I guess you would say, sort of guy where I kind of skimmed through it. I glanced at the imagery. I was on a time crunch to get the bumper installed so that I could get the cover back on so I could drive the truck the next day to work. And it's my daily too. So again, if it's your daily and you're going to be doing some work, allow for enough time to be careful, to take your time, and always measure twice and cut once, right? So I missed the part in the instructions where it said, hey, first and third hole or top and third hole are for a 2-inch body lifted Frontier. So again, I wanted to make this video just to give you guys a heads up. Their instructions are very clear. I just missed it, right? And I will also say shout out to Justin and Simon over at Z1. Both of them helped me after hours and stuff. They even offered to send me a new bumper cover. Now I would have had to have it painted and stuff. They just had a raw one. But I mean, again, they didn't have to do that, right? They didn't have to go above and beyond. So I just wanted to say thanks to them because I appreciate that. But again, the bumper itself is awesome. It's super sturdy. I actually tapped a tree with it right here last weekend when I was out land between the lakes off-roading. I actually caught a tree and you can see it just scuffed the powder coat a little bit, but it stood up great, pushed it right off and protected the whole side of the truck. So the bumper itself is awesome. Just make sure you really read those instructions carefully and that you never cut anything unless you know you have to, right? So again, totally my fault. Just wanted to point that out though. And hope that my lesson learned helps you guys learn your lesson and make the install easier for you, right? Overall, though, the install was not too bad, especially if you have two people to kind of lift it up. And make sure that if you're on a stock non-body lifted Frontier that you use the second and the bottom holes to install it. But so aside from that, the bumper install was super easy. Bumper is really awesome. I had the winch in. I had to use it once or twice last weekend, and it was awesome. So the bumper is awesome. I love it. But again, I hope that was helpful for you. If it was, click that like button. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure to click the subscribe button. Click the bell to be notified when new videos drop. Tons of third-gen content coming. You know, I've got the Z1 snorkel, I've got the Z1 bumper. I love their stuff, so hope to keep running more and more of their stuff as they come out with new stuff. I think they're working on a rear bumper, so at some point that's going to be coming out, but super excited to see more from Z1. I'll put a link in the description down below to their website where you can check everything out for the D41 Frontier because they have just a ton of stuff, and I love that they're supporting us poor Nissan people that have very little support compared to a Toyota person or a Jeep person, right? So big thanks to Z1. Also in the description below will be links to all my other social channels, so wherever you want to come hang out, I'd love to have you join the conversation over there. There's also a link to my website where I've got funny overlanding, camping themed patches and stickers, things like don't burn your wiener and it's a hot dog, or I hate people so I camp, that kind of thing. So if you're into patches or stickers, check those out. Below this video is a join button. If you want to just passively support the channel, get some early access and some other perks, that's a good way to do that, but no pressure whatsoever. It's about $7 a month, so totally up to you. But if you want to support the channel and get early access, that's a good way to do it. If you want a more active way to be involved with all things overlanding, there is a link to my Patreon page where we have a 24/7 Discord. We do a once-a-month Zoom call where we kind of drink a beer and hang out. And we're doing 1 or 2 trips a year to places like Land Between the Lakes. That was actually that last trip where I tested out this bumper, and it did great. So again, if you want to be more actively involved, check out the Patreon link. And then last but not least, there is a link to the Newbie Overlanders Facebook group. This group has over 18,500 members in it now, and it's growing every day. But if you're newer to overlanding, or if you're just tired of the big groups and all the bullying, that may be a good place to check out as well. So click through that link down below. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.